Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pros podcast. I'm your host, Tally Shamus, and today I'm joined by agented writer and my good friend, Kelly Beck. Kelly and I sat down to chat about transitioning to writing from a professional career, the incident that could have destroyed Kelly's news career, and listen until the end to hear us discuss how hitting 30 changed us. Kelly Beck is a former TV news producer turned romance and women's fiction author, specializing in writing unhinged shenanigans and funny escapades sprinkled with real-life grit. Her former career experience includes writing the #1 ranked CBS morning show and many TN Associated Press awards. Since retiring to become a stay-at-home mom, she's written 3 books and signed with her literary agent, Kathy Hedrick Armstrong at Marcel Lyon Literary Agency. When not writing or reading, she enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 children in Memphis, Tennessee, and rotting her brain with silly TV shows like Ancient Aliens and Expedition Unknown. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited.
Why don't you start by telling our listeners where you're at right now in your writing journey?
So I am hopefully this week or next putting my 3rd book out on submission. So I have been agented since 2023, if I'm doing that math right. So yeah, just chugging along, throwing books out there.
And you recently wrote a Substack post about this in between time, between signing with an agent and going on submission.
Yeah.
So how has the experience been?
So I feel like at this point, I know what to expect. I've been with my agent. This is my 3rd book with her. I know what she likes. And I will caveat this to say every agent is different. Every agent has like different things they do and don't want you to do. But at this point, we know we're going to turn this in and you're going to wait for her to read it. But in this time frame, I know these things that she wants. I'm just going to go ahead and have them done. That's always my goal, is that she's not waiting on me. My things are done. So it's just waiting. It's a lot of waiting. Keep yourself busy.
One of the things you've been keeping yourself busy with is social media. I saw you actually
Yes.
make kind of a joke on TikTok about how your agent wants you to get 10,000 followers.
Yes, and that was a joke for everyone. I had a few people be like, this is a red flag. You should walk away from her. I'm like, no. It was completely a joke just between the 2 of us.
But have you been kind of focusing on your following? Do you think that that's important at all when you're going on submission?
I will say, so like if you're nonfiction, for sure. If you're fiction, I think there's definitely an argument. It's like you don't have to have a following. You don't have to have a social media presence. But I don't think it hurt. Like writing a book is passion and talent and all that. But selling a book is business, right? And so I'm like, if you are taking a book to an editor or a publishing house and you can show like, hey, look, I have readers who are invested in me, or I have like a following, that's not going to hurt you. I'm not going to say it's going to help you per se, but it's not going to hurt.
And where have you found that you've kind of been able to build the best community for yourself, where you feel most at ease at home?
Ooh, that's complicated. That's a good question. I look at them in different terms. So I have been on Discord since I've started writing, way back whenever. I run a Discord of my own at this point, and I have met some really wonderful friends that have just kind of a group chat, like a little server that's just our friends. So I'd say I feel most at home there because it's just my friends. Like I don't have to be anything other than me, you know? But as for like building a community, I think Instagram and TikTok, that seems to be where a lot of like the readers and the authors are. You'd probably agree. That's where the majority of the growth happens.
For sure. And I mean, I think that a lot of people chase virality and try to get a really huge following. But at the end of the day, if you have a TikTok that gets 1 million views, how many of those people are then going to feel connected with you enough to go and buy your book?
Yeah, it's such a slippery slope. Like, I think we want the attention and the validation of being like, oh, I went viral. But like you said, human connection is always going to go a lot further. And so I saw something somewhere and it was like, you know, we get so depressed when our TikTok only gets like 200 views, right? But then if you touch grass a little bit and realize, like, if you were shouting into a room of 200 people, significant, you know, I'd be sweaty. So you got to reframe it.
That's so true. And, you know, I think that also, for me at least, social media is a way to kind of get my mind off of things. And writing helps a lot with that too, especially like when you're going on submission.
Yeah. And it's a fun place to find them. Like, I feel like I don't talk a lot about my books until I know they're like at a point that it's a go, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like as a writer, there's so many projects we start and stop, and like you get 7K in, and you're like, this is just not it. So by the time I at least have a first draft, that's kind of like my point of like, okay, no, this is something that I'm gonna work with. to then be able to talk about your book on social media and get that validation of like, oh, people getting excited about the concept or getting excited about the pitch, that kind of fuels me to then edit it and get it done. There's people who would want this, so gotta finish it.
That is so true. And you're totally valid about, being worried what exactly you can say. I don't know if you meant it this
Yeah.
way, but I, especially right now, where basically my book is probably going to go on submission in a couple of weeks. My agents have it right now for the last round of line edits. And I want to post about it on my socials. I want to tell people about it, but I also worry a little bit because I don't know exactly how much of the plot I should be giving
Right.
away.
What am I allowed to say? How much am I allowed to say? Yeah, I've had that conversation with my agent a few times. It's like at the end of the day, okay, let's boil it down. Like it is your book. It is my book, but you don't want to give too much away, then that, especially us like on the trad path where they're like, oh, has this been published already? Like you posted the whole thing on your Instagram story. I think I kind of define it for me. It's like if I would talk about it in the pitch or like I would summarize it to somebody or there's no spoilers, maybe it's like a snippet here and there. I think that's fine. But yeah, it's hard to navigate.
Yeah, it definitely is. Well, I want to move into just some rapid fire questions before
Okay,
getting
let's
into
do
a
it.
really deep conversation.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
real quick, how many books had you written before the one that got you agented?
I'm gonna get so much hate for this answer. One. I got ages on my first book.
So it wasn't one before you got agented, it was just
That
one.
one, singular, yep.
You are a unicorn. Okay, which book
Yep.
got you agented?
Must love goats.
Must Love Goats.
The
And
goats,
how
yeah.
long were you querying it?
Again, this is gonna get a little bit of hate because it's your perspective, 8 months. I queried it for 8 months, which some people are like, "Oh, that's so long." But then other people, when you realize they query for a year, year and a half, 2 years, they're like, "That's not long at all." But yeah, it was 8 months.
And over that time, how many agents did you query?
I think 85 is my final count.
Okay, so that's kind of average, I think, in the middle ground. And did you look specifically for certain agencies, small versus big? Did it matter to you?
Um, the size didn't necessarily matter per se, but I definitely looked at, did they have a sales history? 2 places that I wanted to be sold at. Were they more like a veteran agent or were they new? I wasn't against a new agent, but if it was a new agent, I wanted to make sure that they had good mentorship above them to kind of help them build their career out. And I looked a lot on like Absolute Right and Query Tracker in the comments just to make sure there wasn't any scandals tied to the agency or anything. Like kind of dig around in the depths and do your background.
Wise. And
Yeah.
then once all of that was said and done, what was your offer period like?
Oh my gosh, my offer period was, it was unlike any other. So this is gonna be a little long. I'm gonna try and keep it short, but I had submitted to an independent publisher, Rising Action, who came back and was like, I love this book, but I think it deserves a chance at a big five. I'm gonna connect you with an agent friend of mine named Kathy. Well, unbeknown to her, Kathy already had it. Kathy had found my pitch on Twitter like 4 months ago. And if you know my agent at all, she's notorious for taking forever. And I say that with all the love in my heart. She'll say the same thing. And so this was September at this point, so like 4 months later, and so when she messaged me, "I would love to read it," I was like, "Well, you already have it." So she read it, came back 2 days later, and was like, "I've only read 5 chapters, but it's not there yet." Basically, I needed to rewrite it, like, there was some comma issues and whatever that she wanted me to fix. And I was a little mad at this at first because I was like, "I've had several other fulls, like, nobody else has told me this. Publishers offering on it if you don't want it, like, I'm not gonna waste 6 months rewriting this book for you." She offered to get on a call, so I got on the call, and in my head, I was like, "I'm just gonna sell myself, like, we are gonna end this call with an offer." So we went back and forth. I have a Substack on it, like, about my agent calls me brat, and this is why, because I was, like, arguably a little bit of a brat, but I was respectful. I always say that, I was respectful. And I basically told her, I was like, I'm not going to rewrite this book that you haven't even finished. Like, you've got to chapter 5. You haven't even read the whole thing and you're telling me to rewrite it. What if you don't even like the end? Like that's a big thing. So we went back and forth and basically made a deal with each other that I would edit the first 4 chapters to her standards, which she has very strict line level standards if you know Kathy Armstrong. and that she would finish the rest of the book and make sure she even liked the story. Because I was like, why am I doing this? You haven't even finished it. Long story short, I did those edits. We met back on a Friday, like a week later. I had held up my end. She had not finished the book yet. And she was like, well, just do 2 more chapters. And I was like, no, 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 no. My famous line, she still throws it back to me this day. She wanted me to edit 2 more chapters. And I said, no, I'm not. And she's like, well, I'm not going to offer to you if you're not going to do it. And I was like, okay, then. And she's like, so are you not going to do the edits? And I said, I don't know, but if I do, it won't be with rainbow and sunshine and glitter in my heart. So I obviously ended up doing them only because I was really mad and I was determined. I was like, I'm going to get her offer and I'm going to leverage it and I'm going to stick it to her and go somewhere else. Clearly, that didn't happen because I signed with her. But I did end up getting an offer from her. I did my edits perfectly. I ended up with another offer. So I had 2 offers in the end. But at this point, it had been 3 weeks with Kathy. And I knew, even though we fight, I say that jokingly, we do communicate really well together. And that's one thing I've always respected about her is she holds her ground, I hold mine, but we always find a compromise in the middle. And I knew this was somebody that I could be really collaborative with in my career, in my books, in my sub journey. So anyway, yeah, that was my offer period.
That sounds very exciting.
So thrilling.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you got to know Kathy really well, so that's fantastic.
I did, and that was one thing, like, at the end, when I was deciding between the 2 agents, I kept finding myself wanting to call Kathy and ask her opinion, and I was like, "Okay, well, then that's my answer."
And that's what I was going to ask you. What, at the end of the day, really drew you to Kathy?
I knew she was gonna make me a better writer because by the end, even though I didn't wanna admit it, I saw the same flaws that she was seeing, and that's not to say I couldn't have published a book how it had been written, but I knew myself I was gonna be a better writer doing it her way. And then too, like I said, I found myself wanting to call and ask her advice. And I was like, well, then that's my answer. Like that's my agent.
Wow. Okay, well, I know that you also have a very interesting life before
Mm,
writing. So I want to
yeah.
get into that.
Okay.
So I know you used to work in TV production. What was that like?
So I was a TV news producer for about 5 years, from the years 2013 to 17, roughly. I worked all across the state of Tennessee. I started, if anyone knows Tennessee geography, I started in Jackson, I worked in Nashville, and I ended in Memphis when I quit to have kids. So yeah, it's really high paced. It's really fun. I mean, if you've ever seen a newscast, you get a good idea. I just did everything behind the scenes.
And how
Yeah.
did that translate to writing? How did it inform your writing? How was the transition? Did you take a break? You mentioned that you left to have kids, so I guess
hmm
you were off for a little bit.
Yeah, so I did. So when I left to have kids, I always say I loved my job. Like I really, really loved my job, but TV news is not family friendly. And if I kept my job, I did the 6 p.m. show. So what a news producer does is they write the whole show. So I was still writing every day. I was writing a newscast though. So I would kind of write the instructions for it. I would write what cameras and I would write the stories. I always joked I wrote everything the news anchors were supposed to say, but usually didn't. That was kind of my little haha sarcasm. And I knew leaving to have kids, I probably wasn't going to be able to get my job back just because the industry's going to change too fast. And it's such a resume centered job. I had to have an audition tape. I had to send videos of like my work. I'm like, well, if I'm out of it for years, probably, done. But if I stayed in, I wasn't going to get to see my kids. I literally would do the 6 p.m. show. So I would drop them off at daycare in the morning. My husband would have had to pick them up, and I wouldn't get home till 7:30 on a good night, just in time to like put them to bed. So I decided to leave, and I always joke to my husband that he better know I love him because I left before I got my Emmy, and all my other friends have Emmys at this point. Um, but yeah, and I really kind of floundered because I love writing. Like I truly do. And I wasn't writing anymore. I wasn't working. I wasn't doing a newscast. And I kind of fiddled with like maybe trying to freelance some print articles or stuff, but it just didn't stick. And I think I found NaNoWriMo back when it was still a thing. And this had to be like early 2020 or maybe even 2021 because I think my daughter was a baby. And I found this challenge and I was like, hey, maybe this is like my thing I could just do. Like I can write. I used to write stories as a kid, but I hadn't written creatively in years. And I was like, let's try that. And then it took off and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. But I mean, you went from newscast to your first book, getting you an
Yeah.
agent. How did you do that? How did you translate those skills into long form fiction?
So I will say, okay, I always divide writing into two categories. You're a good writer, meaning like line level, your prose is stunning, or you're a good storyteller. I'm a good storyteller, I'm not a good writer. I always, like, preface that. The writing takes work for me, the line level takes work because of just being in news. So being in news, I knew how to market it. I knew how to tell a good story. Like, my job as a news producer was to pace a newscast. So, like, I had to keep a newscast high energy enough to keep people watching a TV. And so I know how to do that. Like, I know how to tell a good story. I know how to keep people invested. I know how to market and, hook a pitch. I love writing a first line because that's what I did, in news. Like, I need to write a line that's going to get you to stop and pay attention. But then when it came to the prose, I had to relearn all of that. So that was part of what Kathy and I fought over was like your line level needs work. I always joke I had to basically completely erase everything I knew about writing and start over. And then I could add in those skills I still had, like the pacing, teasing, the hooking, how to start and stop a chapter and like keep people wanting to turn the page. I had those skills. It was everything in the middle I had to figure out and learn.
And where did the story come from in Must Love Goats? And I'm not asking because I want to hear this
I'm
story
not
really
asking
badly.
because I've heard maybe some rumors about where this came from. Okay, we're gonna settle in. So when I was in college, I had this event happened to me in my life. So I worked in TV news. I was a TV news producer. I went to school for journalism. And while I was there was a journalism professor. He was a younger guy, not like young, young, but like, middle-aged guy, younger than the old professors. Everybody knew this professor was the one that you had to befriend to get the jobs because news is a very much who you know industry. And I think only like 10% of grads get a job in TV news. Like it haunted me, my fear of failure. So anyway, naturally, I get involved in like student organizations and classes, whatever, which I will caveat this story. This was a very normal thing to like be friends with this professor. He was friends with everybody. It was not like a weird thing. So I'm probably, I think I was 20 years old. I don't think I could drink yet. And find out he has had this like secret crush on me that I truly swear on a stack of whatever you want me to swear on, had no idea was going on. And his wife found out about this alleged obsession, and I got named in the divorce decree that they were getting a divorce because he was having affairs with students, namely me. And she was an executive producer at the TV news stations. I got blacklisted. I got the whole city, the whole station she worked in. Kelly Beck's a homewrecker. She's sleeping with her professor. The wife is an executive producer. They're getting a divorce. I had no idea until he sat me down and he was like, I need to tell you something. I'm so, so sorry. Like I was starting to apply for internships. That's where I was, like at this point in my life. Yeah, you're never gonna be able to work in this city. And it's a sizable market, okay? It's not like a little teeny tiny town. Like it is a sizable market. And he was like, she's told everyone that we're having an affair and you're bad news. I'm like, where would she get this idea? Because I'm just over here trying to do my homework. So yeah, it's not pretty. It was not a fun time in my life. I basically had to decide at that moment that I deserved a seat at the table because I didn't do anything. And I was gonna fight like hell to get a job. Like I worked for this. I didn't do anything. I was still in college, by the way. I think this was like going into my senior year of college. Like the year you're usually again trying to make networks and connections and internships. So I just worked my tail off and I ended up winning a bunch of Associated Press awards like that spring. And I ran into the news director of the news station that she worked at. He was really, really interested in me and was like, come for an interview. And I was like, oh boy, okay, here we go. Like this is gonna go down. So I went to this news station and she was not there yet. And I mean, my reputation precedes me. Like everybody knew my name, knew the stories. There was whispers. 5 years later, I was still getting questions like, "Did you know this professor? Did you sleep with him?" And I'm like, "No." Anywho, I go to this interview, and in an interview for a TV news station, you go what's called the afternoon meeting, and it's where everyone goes and pitches their stories for the day, and, like, as the interviewee, you're expected to go and also pitch. So I was like, "All right, cool." So we go in, we sit. It's a huge room filled with reporters, anchors, producers, the news directors, like, anybody is in there, okay? I sit down, there's an empty seat next to me, the meeting starts, we're going through, and then she walks in late and sits next to me, does not realize it's me. And I'm like, this is about to be good." So I just smile at her and say hello because I'm like, I deserve to be here. I didn't do anything and I want this job. And I don't care if she hates me. We're going to learn to work together. Like, that's where I was at 20 years old. I don't know. I had a lot of guts, I guess. 21, I guess, at this point, maybe. And so she sees me. You can see it in her face the minute she clocks who I am, and it all just clicks. The meeting ends. The news director is like, "All right, come with me. We're going to go do something else." And she stops him and she's like, "No, I need to talk to you right now." And he's like, "Well, I'm with an interview. Like, we'll talk later." "No, now." So I had a friend that also happened to work at the station at this point, and he was like, "Can you go talk, with Matt?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." So, like, I go sit with Matt. She slams his office door, and you can just hear her screaming through the whole newsroom, and it's about me, that she's gonna quit. It's wild. And I'm like, "Yep, yep, not getting this job." So I ended up leaving, obviously, ended up getting a job, across town at the competing station, which ended up better for me anyway. And I ended up beating her every night, like, in sweeps at the TV. It was wild.
Uh,
And everyone always, I know your face is just like,
I honestly, well, the first thing I want to say is just the mental fortitude of being able to go through something like that. Because, I mean, thinking about myself at 20, if this had happened, I don't know how you cannot just lie in bed and cry. I feel like that's just what I would do. It just the fortitude to actually get out and keep going. And I, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed.
I think I had a lot more guts than I probably should have. Yeah, it was a time, and that's like a very condensed version. Like, this lasted a year and a half. I think I had to go to, like, meetings with the deans at the university about, like, what did or did not happen. Wild time.
That's
And
awful.
um of course, this was 2012. Like, this was before me too. Nobody believed, the student, like, I
Yeah,
didn't do this.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's kind of always in my, like, really fun two truths and a lie. And a lot of people know this story. And like I said, even at the tail end of my career, working hours away, people were still like, "Did this happen to you?" Um, and so everyone used to always joke, like, "You should write a book about this. You should write a book about this." And so I was like, well, NaNoWriMo, I'm bored. Like, why not? Like, why not use this as kind of like the inspiration for this book? And something about me is I just like to add silly things into my books. And I felt like I knew I kind of wanted it to be a romance or a rom-com. And I was like, this is a little dark for a rom-com. Like, so I was like, let's add goats. So, like, a goat farm. That'll light it up a little bit. And so yeah, that's the inspiration for my first book.
Wow. Well, I really hope that that book gets picked up and that I can buy it eventually because that is just such a wild story. But I mean, also, yeah, it is dark. It's really sad. It's first off, the power dynamics. He's your professor. For any blame to be put on you is absurd, and she's his wife or
And an
ex-wife.
executive producer, like,
It's
in
insane.
a
And
very small industry.
no, it's insane. It's just wow. I am
It's fine.
flabbergasted. But wow, I mean, look at you now.
It's fine. It worked. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, it's fine. It worked out. Like, it's good. What's funny is, we send this out and we've had a few passes that have been like, this is just unbelievable. Like, the setup is too unbelievable. And we're always like, yeah, I know. I lived it. It was pretty crazy.
That makes me just want to know where you get this strength. I mean, it's so funny because during my offer period, you know that there were a couple of things that made me feel a little bit iffy, a couple of things that I
Hmm.
wasn't sure how to respond to. And I would come to you and I would ask you, and I found myself asking myself, what would Kelly do here? What would she say? And I don't know if it's just the fact that we are taught as women not to be aggressive. I use air quotes, you know?
Yeah.
It's so hard to stand up for ourselves. And I just wonder how you get around that.
So I always tell people like 20-year-old Kelsey was not this aggressive. And I think I just had to learn to do it. Cause especially in that predicament, I was like, nobody else is going to fight for me and I'm going to do it. And I always say I have a lot of spite. I do a lot of things out of spite, a lot of things out of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. My really, really good friend Lindsay would say it's because I'm an Aries and I have the megalomania. But yeah, like I feel like we are taught, be quiet, like be demure and smile pretty and speak softly and make sure you say please. But like why?
That's so
Why?
true. That's so
Like when
true.
you're in a situation where somebody's not treating you with respect and not whatever, why? Or when you're coming, to a table for a business venture, like we're partners. We need to iron this out. I don't need to be soft and gentle. I could be respectful. Yeah, I'm going to be respectful, but I don't have to be soft and gentle necessarily.
And I think that that's in the publishing industry, that's something that is difficult for writers, I want to say across the board, because at least in my experience, I've felt such a power imbalance, whether it's real or perceived. Even when
Hmm.
we're applying to agents, it's like we need an agent. We need an agent to
We need it. We
represent us.
need
We
it.
can't
Yeah.
break in. You need a publisher. You need it, and it's really difficult for writers. How do you come to terms with the fact that an agent is working for you? You are the talent. You
It's
have
so hard.
power.
It's so hard. And I will say, like, I talk a big game, but I have the same insecurities as everybody else. Like, I think I just have a mentality of we're gonna fake it till we make it. And I always stress to people, you are your number one advocate. You are your number one advocate. And if you are not going to fight for yourself or your book or your work or whatever, nobody else is going to either. And so, and it's so hard. And I know it's hard. I know, especially if you've never been in a situation where you've had to stand up for yourself or like, I worked in TV news. I would have news directors screaming at me, on the daily. And so you really just learn to I always say, like, buck up and stand up for yourself, but you've got to, even if you don't feel brave, even if you don't feel like the biggest soldier in the world, act like it. Fake it. Fake it, and I think a lot of it is mind games, just with yourself and everything else. Like you said, you spend so long applying to agents, just kind of, like, begging, like, "Please let me, take me, like my stuff?" So then to have it swapped on you suddenly, it is so jarring. Like, it is so jarring to be like, "Wait, I get to pick and, like, I have a say," and like you said, you're the talent, like, they need your book. I always tell people, by the time you have an offer and you get on that call, you have the decision now. Like, it is in your hands. You've already won them over. Now it is their turn to win you. And you just have to I don't know. I don't have advice on how you do it other than you just have to. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to fake it. Fake it if nothing else.
Well, I think it's so much how you approach situations too, because, you talk about your background in news and how that really helped you find your voice and stand up for yourself.
Mhm.
So for me, I come from law. And honestly, it took me years after leaving the practice of law to build my confidence back up. Because in
Yeah.
that industry, also, I'm getting yelled at by partners. I'm getting chastised because something went wrong that was completely out of my control and
Say something that wasn't even your fault. Yeah.
exactly. And that did not make me stronger at all. Now, in terms of zodiac, I am a Cancer. So I
Oh,
just
well,
cry.
maybe
So,
my friend Lindsay would say that has something to do with it. I have no idea.
yeah, no, I cry a lot, but I'm
It's fine. It's great. Great time.
yeah, it's just, figuring out who you are. You're talking about how you're 20 and you're brave because you're so young. I think for me, it was probably once I hit 30 when I
Mm.
actually started feeling comfortable in my own skin at all. So maybe it comes with age.
I was gonna add that onto it too. It's like I might have been, brave at 20. I think I just had nothing to lose. But I think you said 30, you just hit like you know who you are at 30. I don't care anymore. I don't have time. I'm tired. Like, you know, let's just call it and lay our cards on the table and figure out what we're gonna do and go from there. Like
It's
there, I
true.
don't
It's
know.
so
There's
true.
something about hitting 30. Like I have a bedtime now. Can we just,
Yeah, my
we wrap
prefrontal
this up?
cortex is developed. I am a
Right.
person.
I'm a person. Like I know what I believe and what I stand for and what I like at this point. Let's just go do this.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, sometimes I look at these writers that are in their early 20s and that are already agented, and I think, oh, if that could be me. But
I know.
at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to go back to my early 20s. I was too much of a mess then.
I don't know if I would be the same writer. And I think about
Mm.
that a lot. Like I have some very young, very talented, amazing writers who are in their early 20s and they're already agented. And I mean, you always have the what if, like, man, what if I had started doing this in college and could have had an agent by 23? Like what would that have looked like? But I feel like for me, and maybe you'll agree or disagree, so much of my writing is informed by the experiences that I've had and like the lessons I've learned and just the maturity and life, the life that happens to you. And I wouldn't have had that at 20. So I don't know. Kind of hindsight, I think I'm glad I waited until now.
All that I know is that I feel like I'm very much in the right spot now,
Yeah.
and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. It all happens when it's supposed to.
It does. And on that note, I think that's kind of a nice note to wrap everything up on. Thank you so much for joining me. I really had a great time chatting.
Well, thank you for asking. I loved it. Thanks so much.
And thank you so much to all of you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to come back next Tuesday for another episode of the Pros podcast.